I sat at my sleek, glass desk, the late afternoon sun spilling across the city's skyline outside my office window. My silk blouse felt impossibly smooth against my skin, a small comfort in a life that had demanded I build myself from nothing. Everything looked perfect. My awards, the framed photos of travels, the quiet hum of success. But underneath it, I carried a secret that had never left me. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, and my heart skipped a beat. Dad called. Not unusual. But the message that followed made my stomach knot. We need to talk. Your brother's back. It's urgent. Michael, my brother, the one who had abandoned little Emma, his own daughter, years ago, leaving me to pick up the pieces. He hadn't called, hadn't checked in, hadn't asked about her at all. And now? Now he wanted something. Something that would force me to revisit every sleepless night, every argument, every tear I had hidden behind a composed smile. I leaned back in my chair, pressing my fingertips against my temples, trying to steady the flutter of old anger and unspoken grief. The city below seemed so distant, so irrelevant to the turmoil that had just landed in my lap. Emma's tiny hand had once curled around my finger, a silent promise I'd never let her feel abandoned again. And now, as I stared at that message, I wondered, was I ready to face the past, to confront my brother after all these years? The buzz of my phone echoed like a challenge. I drew a deep breath, feeling the cool silk of my blouse, smelling the faint coffee in the air. One choice lay before me. Step into the storm, or stay safe behind the life I had fought so hard to build. I remember the day everything changed like it was etched into my skin. I was 22, living in a cramped apartment that smelled faintly of old books and instant coffee, trying to hold myself together while my world crumbled around me. Michael had stormed in, his expression a mixture of arrogance and entitlement, completely unaware of the chaos he had caused. You can't do this alone, he sneered, tossing a stack of bills onto the counter. Emma needs her father. I'm back, and I'm taking her. I froze. My hands shook, the paper cutting into my palm, but it wasn't just the physical sting, it was the weight of betrayal. For years, I had carried his absence like a stone in my chest, watching over Emma as if she were my own, shielding her from the reality that her father didn't care. And now, after all this time, he expected to waltz back in and reclaim what he had abandoned? My throat tightened. Words threatened to spill, but I remembered what my grandmother had once whispered as she pressed a delicate gold locket into my hand. Strength isn't loud, darling. It's quiet, steady, and unyielding. That locket had been my talisman through nights when Emma cried herself to sleep, through mornings when I questioned whether I could really do it alone. I looked into Michael's eyes, seeing nothing but indifference and arrogance, and for the first time, I allowed myself to feel the depth of my anger. This wasn't just about him leaving. It was about the audacity to return and demand something as if the years we endured without him didn't exist. I won't let you hurt her again, I said finally, my voice trembling but firm. Emma doesn't need a father who vanishes whenever it suits him. She needs someone who shows up. And I've been showing up every single day. He laughed, dismissive, and I knew he would never understand. That moment, that confrontation, lit something inside me, a resolve that I would no longer be defined by the absence of those who walked away. I packed my bags the next morning, taking Emma and every ounce of hope I could muster. That locket rested against my chest, a reminder that even in the face of betrayal, I could forge a life that was entirely my own. For the first time, I felt the stirrings of independence, and I knew, come what may, I would rise. Starting over was nothing like I imagined. My apartment smelled of paint and ambition, and the small desk I had salvaged from a thrift store became my command center. Emma was asleep on the couch, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm, and I promised myself I would build a life where she never felt abandoned again. I found work in a modest marketing agency, far below my potential, but it was a start. My mentor, a woman named Lorraine, saw something in me that I had forgotten I possessed, a quiet determination beneath the exhaustion. "You're sharper than you know," she said, handing me a cup of coffee that smelled faintly of roasted almonds. "Keep going. The world doesn't hand success to anyone. You have to take it." The nights were long. I learned to juggle client calls with bedtime stories, spreadsheets with scraped knees, presentations with temper tantrums. Emma often sat by my side with crayons in hand, doodling flowers across my work papers. Some days, I wanted to collapse under the weight of exhaustion, to let the world see me fail. But every time I glanced at that locket, I felt my grandmother's words echoing. Strength is quiet, steady, unyielding. The small wins came like sparks. My first client signed a deal after weeks of negotiations, their email practically vibrating with excitement. I closed my first profitable campaign alone, feeling the rush of achievement mingled with the fear of failing my daughter if I let go. Each success I tucked away, quietly celebrating in the silence of our tiny apartment, never posting about it, never letting my family know how far I was rising. Emma became my anchor. She didn't know the nights I cried after she slept or the doubts that clawed at me while I reviewed contracts. She only knew that Mommy showed up, day after day, and made magic out of the ordinary. And gradually, my quiet efforts began to bloom. I invested in courses, learned the art of digital strategy, and even started pitching clients of my own. Lorraine would often remind me, the world notices confidence disguised as competence. You've got both. Slowly, I built a portfolio, then a reputation, then my first independent client base. I found myself mentoring younger women at work, just as Lorraine had mentored me, realizing that giving support was as powerful as receiving it. By the time I looked up from my laptop one evening, Emma sleeping soundly, I realized how far we had come. From an abandoned apartment and a pile of bills, we had grown into a small, unstoppable team. And while the world still didn't know my name, the life I had quietly built was mine, powerful, resilient, and untouchable. I had learned a crucial truth. Success was sweeter when it was earned in silence, when it was a shield against the past rather than a trophy for others to gawk at. And with Emma by my side, I knew no storm, no brother, no shadow of betrayal could shake us. The knock on my office door was deliberate, echoing through the high-ceiling space I had painstakingly built into my sanctuary. I didn't need to look at the calendar to know who it was. Michael had arrived, and with him, the smug certainty of a man who assumed the world still owed him something. I gestured to the chair across from my polished mahogany desk, the leather gleaming under the soft pendant lights. "Sit," I said, my voice calm, collected. My office had grown into something I never could have imagined when I was scraping together rent and bedtime stories. Expensive abstract art lined the walls. A custom bookshelf displayed my carefully curated collection of business and leadership books, and through the glass wall, the city lights shimmered like a promise I had fought for years to claim. Michael's eyes scanned the room, his lips twitching as if he expected me to be small, struggling, flustered. "So, this is your little empire?" he said, the words dripping with skepticism. I smiled, slow and deliberate. "It's not little," I said, my fingers brushing the edge of the desk, feeling the smooth grain of the wood. "It's mine." He raised an eyebrow, the smirk barely hiding confusion. "Mine? You mean you're running all of this?" I leaned back, letting him take it all in. Every client, every campaign, every decision, you name it. And more importantly, I added, my voice softening with a quiet fire, I did it while raising Emma, without your so-called guidance. While you were gone. His posture stiffened. For a moment, there was no sound, just the faint hum of the air conditioner. He glanced around at the awards lining the shelves, the certificates of achievement, the sleek gadgets and devices that were now the tools of my autonomy. I didn't realize. I held up my hand. You didn't realize because you weren't here. You abandoned her. You left me to carry the weight of your absence. My voice wasn't bitter. It was precise, a scalpel cutting through the illusion of entitlement he carried. Emma never needed a father who disappeared. She needed someone who showed up. And I showed up every single day. Michael's jaw tightened. I could see the disbelief, the shame, flicker across his features. But I didn't stop there. I pulled up a few documents on my sleek tablet, showing contracts, financial statements, and the portfolio I had quietly built. This, I said, tapping the screen, is what we've built. And it's entirely independent of you, entirely ours, Emma's and mine. His face went pale, the smug arrogance replaced with shock and hesitation. You did all this? Yes, I said, letting the word hang in the air. And I can keep doing it without you if I choose. But now that you're here, you need to understand something. Nothing you lost, or tried to reclaim, can undo the life I created in your absence. I could see the guilt creep in, the first real crack in the armor of a man who thought he could waltz back into a life he abandoned. And for the first time, I felt the surge of power I had earned, quiet, steady, unyielding, finally recognized. Emma's laughter echoed faintly from the other room, and I realized something. My empire wasn't just the office, the deals, or the accolades. It was this, our bond, the life I had built from the ruins of his absence. And now Michael was seeing, maybe for the first time, what he had truly lost. Michael's eyes didn't leave mine as I leaned forward, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him squirm. This was no longer the scared, overwhelmed young woman who had cowered in his shadow. This was the woman who had built everything from scratch, and I intended for him to understand that power came with responsibility. I'm willing to help you, I said slowly, letting each word land. But not without conditions. You want to be part of Emma's life again? Then you need to change, truly change. And I'll hold you accountable. He shifted uncomfortably, his confidence waning. What do you mean? I mean, I said, my voice firm but calm, that any part of her life you are involved in must come with honesty, presence, and respect. No excuses. No disappearing. No pretending you're the hero now. I saw him swallow, a faint tremor in his jaw. I pulled out a list I had scribbled on a crisp sheet of my notebook. First, you will take full responsibility for your choices. Emma deserves a father who shows up, not one who reappears only when convenient. Fine, he muttered, but I didn't let him off so easily. Second, you will invest in her dreams. Piano lessons, soccer practice, anything she wants to explore, you'll be there. You'll support her emotionally and financially, without control or judgment. And you'll do it consistently. His eyes widened, but I wasn't done. Third, you need to repair relationships you've neglected, including with me. That means humility, listening, and acknowledging the pain your absence caused. No more arrogance, no more expecting gratitude for simply existing. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand. Fourth, you will prove through actions, not words. Do you want a seat at her table? You earn it. Not by pleading, not by excuses, not by nostalgia. You show up. Every day. I could see the weight of realization settling on him. The man who had once demanded without giving anything now understood that he was negotiating on my terms, and the stakes were higher than he had ever imagined. And one last thing, I said, softening my tone. You will let me guide this process. Emma and I have been through enough chaos. I will decide what's best for her, and you follow through with integrity. If you fail, you step back. He exhaled sharply, looking at the floor, shame and frustration battling for dominance. But I didn't flinch. This was not just about control, it was about justice, growth, and healing. Finally, he looked up, meeting my gaze. I understand, he said, tentative but sincere. Good, I said, closing the notebook. Then maybe we can begin repairing the damage you created. But remember, I added, a quiet steel beneath the warmth, this isn't about me granting favors. This is about giving Emma the father she deserves and giving you the chance to earn redemption, one consistent step at a time. For the first time, I felt the full measure of power shift. Not through revenge, not through anger, but through clarity, vision, and the unwavering knowledge that I had built a life strong enough to set terms for anyone who dared to re-enter it. Weeks passed, and slowly, Michael began to change. He showed up for Emma's piano recital, genuinely proud and attentive, not just for show. He cheered at her soccer games, helped with homework, and even sent her little notes of encouragement, small, consistent gestures that spoke louder than any words he had ever said before. I watched him from the doorway one afternoon, Emma's tiny hand tucked into his, and felt a quiet swell of satisfaction. This wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about witnessing growth, even from someone who had once caused so much pain. The locket on my chest gleamed faintly in the sunlight streaming through the window, a reminder of my grandmother's advice. Strength is quiet, steady, unyielding. It had carried me through abandonment, sleepless nights, and uncertainty. Now it carried me through forgiveness, not easy, not instant, but earned through action and integrity. I found myself reflecting on the journey we had traveled together. The fear of being left alone, the endless nights of worry for Emma, the silent victories no one knew about, they had all led to this moment. I had become the woman I was always meant to be, resilient, compassionate, and unafraid to demand respect and accountability. Emma, of course, was blissfully unaware of the weight her father's absence had once held over me. She only knew love and consistency, and that was exactly what I had fought for. Seeing her laughter and curiosity flourish reminded me why I had endured every struggle, why I had built a life that could withstand betrayal, and why I would continue to protect her with unwavering resolve. One evening, as I tucked her into bed, she pressed the small locket I always wore into my hand. "You're strong, Mommy," she whispered, "just like Grandma said." I smiled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face, and felt an indescribable peace. Life had taught me that true power wasn't measured by wealth, influence, or recognition. It was measured by the courage to rise, to protect those you love, and to stand firmly in your own truth. And I had done all of that. I kissed Emma on the forehead and whispered softly, almost to myself, "We've survived. We've grown. And nothing can take that away from us." The city lights outside sparkled against the night sky, but inside, there was a different kind of illumination, a warmth of triumph, love, and quiet, unyielding strength. For the first time, I felt fully free, fully whole, and fully in command of the life I had built with my own hands.